When I was younger, I was given art supplies as a gift. They were really nice ones, too nice. And back then, since I had constantly lived a loop of gaining and losing things, or having absolutely nothing, I really treasured what I got, to the point where I couldn't use them. They would break, get dirty, be defiled, lost, or maybe, just maybe, I'd use it all up, and then I'd never have it again. I'd have nothing again. I didn't want that, so I wound up losing the opportunity. Not long after, I lost all of it, because I couldn't bring it when we moved. Because I treasured it so much, because I was afraid, I lost my chance to enjoy using it. That would happen over and over again as the years pass, gaining and losing, not just with art, but mainly so. I'd stick to lesser quality and use tools to protect the special ones in vain. One day, as I was gathering for trash everything I worked so hard to collect for years, as I looked into that box of purple and black and sequins and books and pencils and paints and stickers, any other tools and stationaries and things that should have been fun, as I threw them away, I realized just how much time I had wasted being afraid, being a possessive squirrel that didn't want so much as a scratch on their acorns. I was aware of it somewhat for a long time, but it only really clicked then how much I had lost. How, in that moment, I wished I would have used those sequins and books and pencils and paints and stickers and everything else. If I had used them until they were all gone, it wouldn't have given such a sickening feeling of regret. And 5 years ago, when I really got into art, I was aware how much I sucked. What I wanted to do never aligned with what my horrid hands created. It never did. I hated it. Everyone else was so much better. It felt like even an infant could do better than me. I kept trying, kept practicing, but I was slow to understand anything. I didn't have anyone to teach me, and I was still wary of using references on the internet back then, because I didn't want the people I knew in real life to berate me for that. Even anime and cartoons, I never grew up drawing along to those. I've never really been in any fandoms or groups or anything to guide my art. I know there are plenty of people who learn well on their own, but I wasn't one of them. At least, I was really slow at it. I never had the memory capacity to draw anything other than what I saw in real life and the things inside my head. It came to me then. If, back when I was a young child, I had used those art supplies and ignored everyone around me, ignored the teasing and yelling and accusations of copying, just ignored everything but really learning how to draw, maybe I'd have gotten better. Maybe I'd have enjoyed it so much that wanting to be an artist would be something that could have escaped my lips then. I did draw then. I just didn't learn. If I had spoken up and really pushed myself and everyone else, maybe I could have learned. Maybe I wouldn't have, in that moment, as I looked upon my shoddy work and had those thoughts, been forced into choices I didn't want, away from art, into what was, I can absolutely say, a hell that shattered me into oblivion. Maybe I would have pursued art, gone to an art school, actually learned all the things I didn't understand from people that actually wanted to help, who actually believed in me. If I had only pushed past that fear of running out of stupid little pencils and being made a mockery of, and forced myself to try harder. Maybe. But maybe not. It was during those hard times where I really got into art. It was fun. The only fun thing I really had. The only thing I had created all on my own, with nobody to take credit, with nobody to know. It was mine. My art, my stories, Despite how ugly or lopsided or worthless it may have appeared, to me it was the only safe haven I had. It's why, while I do make fun of it, and there are often times I get depressed where I am in art, I can never truly hate anything I made. What if all that went away if I pursued it when I was younger, when I still needed to protect and not use those pencils? Maybe I'd be good at it now. Maybe I'd be amazing, who knows? But there's never any way of telling. I know it wouldn't be that easy. I know because I've lived at least this path of my life, and no matter how many butterflies fly in our path, some things will just never change. Not in us, but everyone else. Maybe right now, in that hypothetical world, I would hate the art I worked so hard to create. Then, wouldn't I have nothing? Maybe. So I don't think about that. I didn't start drawing to be professional. I just wanted to put down my stories in eyesight, to vent out everything I held in, to show that progress is possible even in someone like me, to have fun. Realizing that made everything so much easier. We're exposed to millions of artists on the internet, in the world, young or old, or anything, anyone, with any level. But especially by being aware of why I really draw, it's usually not a struggle for me to hold down negative thoughts, to not envy others, and instead look at it as a separate thing. Even when someone says my art sucks, yeah, that absolutely used to hurt when I was younger, especially when it was someone I cared about. But in the end, it wasn't really all that important, since it isn't supposed to be good. Dare I say, it's supposed to suck. It's a representation of myself, after all, and I'll be the first to say I take pride in accepting my suckiness. But despite thinking that way, and I apologize for taking anyone who is listening on constant detours in my rambling, I didn't fully learn back then to make use of all the resources I had. As I'm sure anyone who knows me knows, I started digital art using a mouse, in Paint. That's the way I did it as a toddler, and that's how I did it in the beginning of my DA days. I was always really cautious then. I'd make 100 saves for every stroke, just in case I wound up ruining the piece, because Paint has no layer features, and I'd experienced that loss many times when I was much younger, causing me to avoid digital art until then. As I moved to actual art programs and had access to an abundance of tools, I had a lot of fun, but I was also cautious. It was tiring using a mouse. None of my strokes would go how I planned. Countless issues arose, everything was tedious, and I was trapped in that same protective fear of my work. I didn't want anything I made to go to waste. I couldn't even sketch because it felt meaningless to train a mouse. And still, for a while, I didn't learn digitally from the internet, because most of the tutorials and teachings for things I wanted to know were specifically for tablets. Still, I couldn't just ask someone I knew to borrow their tablet. I've never gotten along with anyone in real life to think I could do that freely. So, for a while, I just enjoyed drawing with my mouse, clinging to my old ways and not really stepping out of my boundaries. My traditional art improved in leaps and bounds, but my digital art stagnated constantly. I thought it would get better if I just got a tablet. Then both ways would match, and I wouldn't be constantly dreading the tediousness that was my mouse. I tried to get a tablet. I always had to wait. A new loop occurred. I tried to get a tablet. I wouldn't have enough money for one. I'd work hard enough to get one. I'd lose it all in garbage of life flung at me. And then there'd be no opportunity to get a tablet for a long time. So again, I'd have to wait. When it started, I eased up on drawing with my mouse. I wouldn't care to improve or put too much effort in common pieces, thinking all would be well and I'd get a tablet soon, and I could make up for it. My work continued to stagnate. Then, when all my plans crumbled down, it would only have a negative impact. and it happened so often that I was crossed between accepting I'd never get a tablet and just kick my heels and work harder, or just not drawing digitally at all. Aside from things I did with or for my friends, it wasn't fun. I'd try all sorts of things to make it enjoyable, but it just felt like I was forcing myself to sustain where I was. I half-assed a lot of things, and even when I worked really hard in pieces, which I really did, they never turned out right. I was, quite simply, waiting. It's hard to work properly when you constantly feel discouraged, when you don't have the right tools or knowledge or motivation. And even if you do have knowledge or something you want your art to portray or achieve, it just doesn't work because of your situation. That's how it was for me. Eventually, I just couldn't bring myself to do a lot of digital work, and I believe it was the end of October when I finally stopped for months. There was one piece of art I did with a mouse. I believe it was one of the final mouse illustrations I cared to make. It was different, or rather, was the start of a difference. I'll pop it up on screen so we're on the same page. I drew this in the middle of January, so aside from comics and little side pieces, it was really the first thing I drew since October. I didn't have access to the internet then. I was on break, working on a non-art related project. I had no obligation to do the thing that would only wind up upsetting me. I just really wanted to draw that. I just really wanted to draw something that felt like me, like my traditional work, because up till then, nearly everything I made digitally didn't really feel like me. I was close to hating it all. I wanted this to be different. Even if it was a failure, I told myself it was fine, since I had given up on getting a tablet entirely at that point. I wanted to put as much work as I could into that piece, to make it different, to try things I'd normally avoid, either because it never seemed to turn out well, or because I didn't actually like it, such as the hard shading. I just wanted this piece to be a try. And honestly, this was one of the first things I'd ever made that I actually liked. It was something I had seen myself doing, but never could because I was always waiting to get better, waiting to understand everything, waiting to get a stupid tablet. Believe me, this was tedious to make. I kept messing up which lines to erase, which lines to keep, what spacing should I do for the shines, and why the heck does she look like a drug addict? I see the faults in it, like all my other work, but it was actually fun. I actually had fun drawing with a mouse. And I did it the same way the next few times, and although tedious, they were fun. All because I tried and broke out of the I'm going to lose everything if I do anything different from my usual process, or I redraw things that aren't perfect, or I do that shading that I hate so much. It was great. But then, I sort of had a taste of the wonders of a tablet, and it was impossible to go back. So here I am, having only drawn comics in digital form, and completely neglecting my mouth otherwise. Seriously, why didn't anyone tell me there was such a big difference? I knew there was something, but it's even easier than traditionally? A part of me very much wants to go back to that idiot squirrel child I was and to slap them so they get a tablet, so they wouldn't have wasted actual years on something they didn't fully enjoy, and just get a tablet to eliminate that suffering. But even then, I remember, if I hadn't done it this way for years, maybe I wouldn't have approached drawing on a tablet this way. I'm going to get a tablet, absolutely. I just have to wait a little longer. But if I feel like using the tools available for me, I'll pick up my mouse and focus on art in the now. Thank you for listening to my aimless late night rambling. Bye-bye.